This is The Great Outdoors with Jason White, exploring the great outdoors in Pennsylvania and beyond. Brought to you by the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association and by Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. Now, The Great Outdoors with Jason White.
Hello, friends. I'm Jason White. Welcome to The Great Outdoors. I have a fantastic show lined up for you today on this crisp fall day here in southwestern Pennsylvania. But before I do, I want to give a special thanks to our sponsors. Special thanks to the Mariana Outdoorsman Association. You can join the MOA today at marianaoutdoors.com, and they're currently running their early bird special. So if you join right now, you actually get the remainder of 2024 for free, and then you get a 2025 membership. So that's an amazing deal. Cannot stress that enough. We're going to be actually stocking this upcoming week, so even if you want to come try it out for a day, that's an available option as well. 10 Mile Creek Outfitters, which manages Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. Please come check us out, 10mileco.org. Give us a call at 724-579-0924. If you're looking to do any type of guided deer hunt, free range, no fence, guided turkey hunt, guided upland bird hunt. We have upland bird hunt scheduled from now basically into March. So if you want to do anything like that, whether you want to do that by yourself, whether you want to do that with a group of people, whether you want to do a corporate event like for a continental hunt, happy to accommodate all the above. Definitely some fantastic opportunities. And as always, please visit beautiful Pennsylvania. Upcoming events for the Mariana Outdoorsman Association. This upcoming Friday at 3 p.m., there will be trout stalking number 3 of the fall season. We finally got some really good rain here recently, and it's actually supposed to rain tomorrow. So conditions are continuing to improve. Temperatures are good, and hopefully we just continue to get some precipitation here in southwestern Pennsylvania. Certainly, what we experienced through I would even say late spring, the whole summer, and even into early fall was certainly unprecedented in the past 30 plus years. So please keep your fingers crossed so we continue to see some good precipitation headed to southwest PA. I know it's not just the MOA that was dealing with the trials and tribulations geared at the water levels. It seems like all the water across the entire state seem to be lackluster at best. It's been very difficult fishing. It's been extremely difficult for anybody. It's hard on the fish. I could go on and on and on, but again, extremely thankful that we're getting some rain, and everybody just continue doing that rain dance. This Saturday, 10 a.m., there's going to be an open house and a tour hosted at the MOA, 1997 Maury Road, Clarksville, Pennsylvania, 15322. That'll be at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. If you're interested in coming out and taking a tour, looking at any of our facilities, amenities, etc., happy to have you. If you're interested in the fishing side of things, or if you're interested in the shooting, all the above, we've got everything, so happy to have you. Looking ahead, Friday, December the 13th, that'll be trout stalking number 4 of the season. That will be at 3 p.m., As always, we meet at Wild Acres at the main facility, and then we stalk the 10-mile section, and then we end at Daniels. That's our typical stalking schedule. Sunday, December 15th, we have on the books a one-day fly fishing tournament. Something unique. We're trying it out this year. We've never done that before, but it'll be strictly fly fishing only. Happy to have you. Going to be a fun little competition. Going to be, based on tagged fish, and it's just it's an interesting experience. If you've never done winter fishing, certainly challenging. Fly fishing is even more challenging, but those that love it certainly can appreciate that. I'm hoping we get a little bit of snow. That would be awesome. If it would be a little bit of snow on the ground at that time, that's just a really cool experience, catching a big trout, and just the atmosphere of being in the snowy woods. Looking ahead into next spring, a lot of good things on the radar, but Friday, May 2nd, Saturday, May 3rd, until lunchtime and noon on May the 4th. It's going to be the 2025 second annual PA Trout Classic. We'll have 80 slots open if anybody wishes to participate in that event. All the fishing tournaments you need to pay in advance. You can go on the website, marianaoutdoors.com. All the directions for registration for either the winter fly fishing event or the 2025 second annual PA Trout Classic. Just go on Facebook, go under the event, and down in the comments you'll see all the instructions on what you need to do. It's pretty simple, actually. And, we just look forward to having everybody. That being said, I wanted to touch base. We're kind of in peak rut right now. Some areas it's peak, some maybe it's on decline, some it's on the rise. It's a region to region thing that's different. The one thing I can tell you is I would highly recommend, if you have the available opportunity and time. The weather right now is fantastic to be out, especially this week. Highs are in the 50s now through Saturday. I think that's going to be fantastic opportunity for people to get out and enjoy some archery hunting. Something that I wanted to highlight on, because I think it's important, I wanted to go through some things that I've personally experienced and some things that I wanted to advocate that I think are critical during your hunting experience that you not only know and understand, but also appreciate and better evaluate for you to be a more effective and efficient hunter. I want to talk about antler size. I've dealt with hunters doing guided hunts, and there's opportunities certainly for folks to harvest big bucks here in Pennsylvania and obviously in other states. But the one thing I would recommend is, what are you looking to target? What are you looking to, what are your goals personally? If you're going to a guide service, there's obviously a chance that they're going to say, hey, you have to have a minimum Pope and Young. If you're archery hunting, you're going to have a minimum Pope and Young score of 125. And it's your obligation and duty to understand what that means. I've had clients in the past personally that I've explained this to, and then they end up harvesting a deer, and after the fact, they've then proceeded to tell me that they didn't really understand. So I thought it was really important for me to kind of go through this and for you to understand like what that means, how you can better understand what you're looking at. So let's just start off. There's a score sheet. If you actually would just do a simple Google search or a search engine search, Pope and Young, or you can even use Boone and Crockett. There are score sheets that exist. Pope and Young being the scoring via archery, and Boone and Crockett being the scoring with a rifle or a firearm. That being said, there are these score sheets, and there's measuring locations for you to basically establish the measurement. The length of the antler itself, the inside measurement, antler to antler, the length of the tines themselves, and then also the girth. Typically, it's in 4 locations up on the antler itself, minus any the net and the gross, which are 2 different measurements. Typically, your net is after your deductions are taken care of. Deductions typically are included and incorporated via the difference of the measurements. So when I say that, like if you're G3, so as you come up, the G's are your antlers when they when you look at the antlers. So when you look at a little chart on your little score sheet that I'm referring to, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. But you will see that those measurements, if one side on it, let's just use an 8-point buck, so you have your brow tines, and then we move up to what they call the G3s. If those are, one side is 6 inches and one side per se is 4 inches, you're actually going to get a 2-inch deduction because it's basically what's based off of uniform. That goes same all the way around. So that being said, What are some things you should look for? Let's use 125 inches, which is that's where the Pope and Young score sheets kind of start out at. How do you know what you're looking at? What are you looking for? How do you know and understand what 125 inches is and up? So let's look at it from, if imagine a deer is looking at you, a buck's looking at you, staring right at you. Number one, you should always use the ears of a deer as a measuring device. Typically, a buck's antler, or excuse me, the edge to edge of the ear. So if the ears are out here, that's typically 15 inches. So use that as a simple measuring device. If a buck's antlers on the inside, if you can see a gap between the end of the ears and the inside of the rack, that is a tremendously good sign that you're beyond what I would say 120, 125 inches. Now, what else is important? The girth of the rack. So you should be able to tell, like if it looks pencil thin, that's a terrible sign. That means that deer is not that old. Maybe it has great genetics and it's filled out, but it's just super, super thin. It's probably not going to score that great. Additionally is the tine length. So you start off with the width of the rack, which is extremely important, but also the girth all the way through. So, for example, when you see pictures of people that are holding a rack and they basically have a difficult time getting their hands around it because the rack's so thick, that is a telltale sign of a very good scoring deer. Additionally, the tine length, like I was mentioning, if you're looking at tines and they look like little nubs or they only look 3 or 4 inches, I'm going to assure you that's not going to score good. You want to see like tines that are literally 8 to 12, even larger in length. Those are really good identifiers. Best way I could describe it to you is almost like you want the antlers almost to look like kibasi links, sausage links, very sturdy, thick, have some mass and beef to them. That's really what you're looking for. Now, mind you, let's hypothetically say a deer isn't super, super wide. I've seen bucks like this. Buck's not super wide. He's basically to his ears, but he has a ton of mass, and he's actually, instead of being an 8-point, he's a 13-point. I've seen this before. I saw a deer fit this same bill. Wasn't super wide, but he was super thick and had a lot of points. Scored like 148. The best thing I can tell you to do is to, number one, look at the scoring processes, whether that's Pope and Young, Boone and Crockett. Anybody can go and look it up online, like I'm saying. There's a lot of tremendous videos out there that kind of show you how to do the scoring technique. Also, you can pull up different pictures that really represent past scored deer and show you like what's a 100 class deer, what's a 120, what's 130, 40, 50, so on and so forth. So you get a better understanding. Personally, I'm trying to, manage our herd to try to target 125s and up. That's my current goal. It's an education process though, dealing with hunters, because you have to make sure that everybody understands what does that mean. Now, is everybody going to go hunting and shoot a 125 and up class deer? The answer is no. That's not always an easy scenario. There's a lot of management that goes into it. There's a lot of genetics that goes into it. And most importantly, time. To get deer of that size, you're talking at a minimum, in my opinion, you're talking at least 3.5 years survival rate. Ideally, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, 125 and ups, you're really targeting a deer that is 4 to 5 years. Like that's I would say that's the gravy window. If you're looking at anything from 125 to, I'm going to say 175, and that really amazing achievement, those deer are going to be typically, in my opinion, 4 to 5 years old. Now, can a 3-year-old buck score 125? Absolutely. Can a 3-year-old buck even score 130? Absolutely. 140? Probably. I'm not going to say it can't. I'm sure it's certainly happened, and I'm sure it'll happen again. Again, it all comes back to genetics, What do they have to eat? What are the food sources? Clearly, they're not busting their rack, but age. There's a lot of factors that go into this. It's not a one-stop shop where everything's going to be the same. Some have really bad genetics. Some deer never will get super big. I saw a buck harvested last year. It was a double brow tine, 10-point, beautiful deer. This deer had to have been, I'm going to guess, at least 6 years old. It looked super old. We didn't age it, but just judging by the face and how really, really old it looked, but it was basically just past the ears, but it was perfect, perfect symmetrical 10-point. It had a lot of nice thick mass to it, but it was probably at the end of its peak. It probably had passed its peak and survived through that whole, time frame. But why I tell you this is, number one, obviously depending on what your personal goals are. Obviously, it's critical for you to know and understand how to identify what that even is. And I cannot stress to you enough, please, basic search engine. You can get the score sheets. They're good for you to reference. I'm not saying you have to live like this or this has to be like, your entire day-to-day of how you deer hunt. Please don't think I'm saying that. But if your goal is to really know and understand better what you're trying to harvest, if you're not really interested in the points system itself, even if you're not interested in submitting for a Pope and Young or a Boone and Crockett measurement for it to be officially recorded, it doesn't matter. Like, if you in your mind have a goal of what your trophy is, not understanding the inches and understanding really what you're looking at is, in my opinion, very important, and it's paramount, because if you always shoot spindly racks that are 2-year-old bucks, you're never going to achieve 130 or that thick racked buck, because a buck's not going to be that thick in year number 2. 1.5, 2.5-year-old deer are not going to be that. Realistically, in the lifespan of a deer, that first year, it's going to be a button buck to a spike at best. In the first, we'll just call it 6 months of its being a baby. At year 1.5, you're looking at a spike to a very small buck, like a 4-point, 6-point, something in that capacity. Year 3.5, you're looking at realistically a big 6-point, small 8-point, small 10-point, something that's basically out to its ears. It's that following year 4.5, that is super, super, super critical, in year 5.5. That is the magic zone of if you're going to shoot a really thick, nice, gnarly deer that is not only a wall hanger, but is something that was managed. And, think about it. That deer probably crossed roads a million times. Probably somebody took a shot with a bow or a gun at some point and missed. Just all the trials and tribulations of obviously being a wild animal. So for you to, hopefully have that opportunity to harvest a quality deer at 4.5 or even 5.5 years, just know that there's a lot of time and effort that goes into it. There's a lot of people like you that were willing to pass up on that 2.5-year-old deer in the hopes and obviously the goals of it maturing to be, 3.5 to 5.5 years old. So these are just things for you to know and consider, things for you to think about. Obviously not everybody's hunting horns, and I understand that, but for those of you out there that are truly looking for conservation management, managing your deer herd, managing your deer populations, it's really critical that you know and understand when you're looking at a deer, what quality it is, what's it look like. I mean, when you start getting into deer that are 125 to 150 class deer, honestly, beyond even the size of the racks, the size of the bodies are much bigger. You're just talking a deer with more muscle, more meat, a bigger and larger frame. it's just an impressive animal. And it's just critically important that you're able to kind of look and compare. You should even be able to at 3, 4, 500 yards. When something's of that size, you're not going to mistake. You're not going to miss it. You're not going to mistake it. I've seen bucks with even this year, probably 20 to 24-inch spreads that you could see them 300 yards away, and it's like, holy smokes! Like, it looks like the size differential is just different. When they're that big, you can't miss it. They're an impressive animal, big, and certainly, they stick out. So you just, through experience, through your own research, through your own hunting tactics and techniques, just be mindful of body sizes. Compare deer to deer, like when you're out in the woods. I mean, look at their faces. You're able to actually even tell age. Obviously, I'm not saying that you're going to tell it down to specific days or even months, but you can pretty well tell how young something is looking at its face compared to the age of an older deer. They look a lot different, and obviously, whenever you get up close to them, and if you have the opportunity to harvest one, the age differentials are very clear when you're looking to age a deer. You can also get into this when it comes to measuring the teeth. That's a whole kind of episode itself, but there's a lot of videos, again, online about aging a deer. But again, the quality and size of the rack, the quality and size of the body are very humongous telltale signs on the age. But at the end of the day, if you're hunting horns, you need to be able to really look at the antlers and identify what you're looking at. Understand the widths, understand tine length, understand mass. If you can understand that and know when to let something go and when to wait, I can assure you you're going to have a much better experience with size and quality as opposed to quantity. I can tell you from experience, sometimes, passing up on the little ones can be hard because you're worried, I might not get that big one. But depending on your situation and scenario, certainly I'm a big proponent that if you have patience, and listen, I had a couple years where I didn't get a buck. I passed up, and it wasn't what I was looking for. Now, because of good management, we have a lot better deer herd on the properties that we manage. Certainly, it's taken about 3 to 4 years. So don't think like when I advocate for these types of ideas or thoughts or suggest for you to consider doing it, this isn't something you're just going to do this hunting season and expect the fruits of your labor to even happen this year. You might have to pass up on deer this year. Next year, you might have to pass up on more deer. But by the time you get into year 3 and year 4, you're going to see a huge difference because there's going to be a lot more deer, quality deer. But the other thing that's extremely critical is your doe herd management. You have to really have to manage that doe herd because, as always, if you have too many deer, they really beat down the food sources, and obviously the more food sources for less equates to, I would say, a healthier herd. Better ecosystem for them to thrive in, more places for them to hide. I mean, you can certainly Google online and look at some of the devastation that a deer herd can put even into a forest, to where they basically wipe out the whole ground floor. Not only is that terrible for the forest itself, but now there's basically nowhere for the deer even to hide. So it just basically is counterintuitive even to habitat for them to feel safe, for them to bedding areas, etc. So a good managed deer population is, in my opinion, extremely critical, not only for the quality of the deer, but also for the ecosystem that the deer lives in. Because, listen, at the end of the day, you want to be able to manage the deer, you want to be able to manage the food sources, and you need to manage the habitat from which that deer moves back and forth between getting water, getting food, and going to their bedding areas. They need to feel comfortable, and it should be a cycle. Now that cycle changes certainly during like this time of the year, considering it's the rut period of the year to where the males are chasing the females. But that being said, the bucks have a much wider range. Does not so much. Does not so much. Does are really big into their zones, but the bucks are going to go around looking for breeding females, and basically they're going to be on cruise control. Their zones, which could be a mile to 3 mile diameter. There's some instances where there's been studies where that number can almost double during the rut period of the season because they're just cruising. They are cruising, just simply looking for basically for a breeding doe. So, with that even being said, it's very, very critical this time of the year that just because you didn't see a big buck, let's just say the first 3 weeks of the season, maybe you had your localized herd that are on that range that were hunting. You were hunting the areas where maybe they were eating acorns, maybe they were going to different grazing pastures, so on and so forth. That's fine. Right now, you're going to get those neighboring bucks. They're going to be now traveling corridors that maybe necessarily wasn't their typical range. Maybe now they're pushing over. These are things that you got to be really, really conscientious of during this time of year, during the rut. So there's always great opportunities right now to see deer that you maybe never saw before. So never lose sight of that. That just because you didn't see a buck before doesn't mean you're not going to see it now. And looking ahead, rifle season's right around the corner. We're only 3 weeks away from Pennsylvania rifle season. When rifle season happens, you're definitely in a very good window and a very good opportunity to see deer that you've never seen before. Because guess what? There's going to be neighboring properties to where people are doing deer drives, where people are moving around, or somebody shoots at a deer and misses, and it takes off and ends up pushing onto your property. So, when we talk about the quality of the deer, and if you're really trying to, shoot a 125, 150, 170, whatever it may be, whatever your goals are, just don't be deterred by the fact that, maybe between the first month of archery season, you didn't see the quality that you were looking for. There's going to be a lot of deer right now moving from farther distances, pushing on much larger, I would say, ranges, which is critical for you to know and understand. And then when rifle season kicks around, just remember, being patient, especially those first few days when people are out doing deer drives, really cracking at just about anything and missing. You have a great opportunity to harvest a really good quality buck, but it comes down to patience. And before, in my past episodes, I've talked a lot about practice, and all the things that go into it. But, not only have I seen people that do not understand and truly appreciate understanding the quality and sizes of deer, but also practice. I cannot stress this enough. Like, you have to practice. You cannot go out. I'm sorry, but it is completely wrong for a person to not practice even in their backyard with a bow, or go to your gun range and shoot an adequate number of rounds. You need to know what you're about to shoot, that you feel confident that you can successfully harvest that animal. It is totally wrong to pull off a shot that you haven't practiced or you're not confident in that shot. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that will agree with me, but I do not condone anybody taking a shot that you do not feel 100% confident that you can pull off when you whether pull the trigger or let that bowstring go. It's not right. Like, imagine a scenario. Let's give a scenario here. Let's imagine you have a 150-inch class buck, a beautiful buck that took 4 or 5 years to get that size, and you see it walk out at 60 yards and you're bow hunting. But you've only practiced to 40 yards. But you're let's just even say you're using a crossbow, but your crossbow has the markings for 60 yards, but you never practiced it. Should you take that shot? The simple answer, or it's a simple answer. Absolutely, you should not take the shot. Do not shoot. Because, again, you don't, are your shooting lengths cut properly? Have you practiced the shot? Do you actually know that your scope and, or for that matter, your bow peeps, does everything match up with the sights at that distance? Have you practiced it? Same thing with a rifle. Okay, you've shot your gun at 100 yards at the range, but now you go out and you see a giant buck at 300. Are you going to pull off that shot? Do you feel confident to make the shot? Is it the ethical and right thing to do? It's not the ethical and right thing to do. Whatever you're going to do in a hunting capacity, you need to practice it. Not only for the ethics of the deer, but also for safety. Let's think about this from this perspective of a rifle. Okay, I know if you're going to shoot, number one, you need to obviously always know your surroundings. You never point a gun or a firearm at any person or thing or place without knowing what's behind it, what you're shooting at, identify your target, so on and so forth. If you do not know the drop of your bullet and do not understand that firearm, you should never, ever, ever, never, ever, ever pull the trigger on any game, because it's completely wrong. It's completely unsafe. It's unethical, and it's not what you should be doing as a hunter. Whatever you're going to do, all I advocate for and say to you is practice it. I understand we all have busy lives, and we're all going 100 miles an hour doing different things in today's society. It is what it is. But if you're going to go out archery hunting, stick with what you've practiced. If you only shot out the 30, 40 yards in your backyard, then stick to that shot in the woods. If you go to the rifle range and you've only shot out to 200 yards, well, heck, no matter what you do, stick to that shot. If you want to shoot farther, then listen, there are a lot of different ways for you to learn how to shoot at different distances. But no matter what technique you utilize, it all comes down to simple and utter practice. Practice, practice, practice. Whether that's shooting the same grain arrows with the same fletchings, with the same grain heads, and practicing that. And the same thing goes for your rifle. You can't go to the rifle range before deer season and shoot at 100, and let's just say you sight your gun at 100 yards with a 150 grain bullet, and then you literally go out with a completely different bullet. Let's just say, I don't know, let's just say a flat nose bullet at 150 grain, and then you go and shoot a, I'm just going to say a solid bullet, a totally solid bullet at 180 grain. They're not going to fly the same. It's not the same type of bullet. They're not going to have the same flight pattern. They're different weights. Like, there's so much physics when it comes into that. Like, whatever you're going to practice with, you need to utilize. Another thing I want to suggest is when you're out, obviously you need to know your yardages when you practice. But I highly recommend, you can get them relatively cheaply, but you need to have rangefinders. They sell them for golf. You get them online relatively cheap nowadays. But you need to, like, no matter where you're at and what capacity you're in, obviously you should have that rangefinder to during the sighting in and the practicing process. But then when you're out there hunting, you need to know the ranges at different spots, because you're not always going to be able to, a deer pops out in a field. Let's say the neighbor shoots at a buck and misses, comes onto your property. You should already have predetermined like spots on your property from your tree stand. If you're hunting over a field, it doesn't really matter. You should have some pre-recorded, sit there in advance and record what's the different ranges. You should know the yardages. Get your, use the rangefinder, range it out, have it done. There's a lot of times when these things, especially in rifle season, they're going to happen fast. It's not always going to be a deer just grazing out and turning broadside at 150 yards and, you seal the deal. Again, practice, practice, practice. Use your rangefinder. Get your distances in advance. Know where things are at. Depending on where you are, I'm even an advocate of putting like flags or like even like little how would I describe it? Like surveyor's tape, like that kind of stuff. Maybe out at 100 yards, you put like an orange tape. Maybe at 200 yards, you put, a blue tape or a green tape. And at 300 yards, you put a different tape. You can do those types of things. Tie it onto a stick, tie it onto a weed. So these are just different things that you can do to kind of give you references. Obviously, there are other tools and mechanisms you can do if you practice a lot and find ways that you can, just like the military does, where they teach people, to give reference points. Learn what 100 yards is and give yourself a reference so you can kind of range it out even if you do not have that rangefinder. But these are all things I can't stress to you enough. If you're trying to shoot good quality deer, I've talked all summer about preparation, food plots. We've talked about hunting food sources. We've talked about tree stand installations. We've talked about safety harnesses and proper safety. We've talked about posting your properties, respecting private landowners. My goodness. We've talked about minerals all summer. Now we're into like peak rut. You need to have, I would hope everybody's had their bows sighted in. I would hope that if you're hunting a big buck, you know what you're looking at, you know what you're looking for. You need to know and understand what it is. You should never just pull a trigger or let your bow go not knowing what you're shooting at. So I say that sincerely. Like if you're trying to hunt big bucks, you need to understand what that even means. Rifle season's right around the corner. Be patient. People are going to miss deer, and guess what? There's a good chance they're going to come running onto your place, and that's awesome, and I hope they do. But don't put yourself in a position to where you didn't prepare. Whatever hunting ammunition you're going to use while hunting, practice with it. Take some time, get your yardages. I highly recommend in the state of Pennsylvania, 100 to 300, you need to know that. Obviously, there's always opportunities to shoot farther, but you need to have the right setups. You need to have done the practice that you need to do to get there. Do you know the windages? Obviously, have you identified your backstops? Do you know where you're at? Do you have a bipod or something set up to even pull off a shot of those distances? Do you know your drop? Just remember, a good tool, and this is kind of far range shooting 101, but if you do not have the knobs or I'll just say a high-end scope, just remember, you can take a big piece of cardboard, about 3 foot, 4 foot wide, 4 foot tall, come down about 6 inches from the top and draw yourself a black marker line, nice and level. Draw yourself a line straight up and down. 100 yards, you should be 1 inch to 3 inches high. Shoot that and mark on there 100 yards next to the bullet, where the bullet hole entered. Move that cardboard back to 200 yards. Shoot it exactly the same spot. Mark on your bullet holes where they hit. Move it back to 300. Move it back to 400. What it's going to give you is you're going to be able to take a tape measure and 100 yards, okay, I'm 1 to 3 inches high, whatever it is. 200 yards, I'm basically dead on. 300 yards, it drops 6.5, 7 inches. 400 yards, it dropped 12 inches. You can make little notes even, so that way when you're out hunting, put a little. I've seen people put little notes actually on the stock of their gun, and they'll put tape over top of it, like clear masking tape. You could put a little index card in your pocket. Put it in your cell phone. Doesn't really matter. There's a lot of different tools, things you can do to remind yourself on the drop of your bullet based upon you practicing. So, I wish everybody nothing but the best of success. Obviously, if you're targeting big bucks, know what you're looking for. Know the indicators. Know the face. Know the girth. Know the length of the tines. Understand the Pope and Young scoring system. Understand Boone and Crockett. Understand deductions. Lots of great videos out on the internet. Lots of pictures. Lots of articles that you can read about. Highly recommend all that kind of stuff. Again, do not get deterred because you didn't see a big buck the first month of the season. Rut's happening. Deer ranges are astronomically growing. The footprint's growing. And guess what? When we get into rifle season, there's going to be a lot of deer that are pushed and moved around by neighboring properties from people either missing, kicking deer up, or who knows what will happen. Maybe somebody's taking their dog for a walk or something on the neighboring property, and next thing you know, there's deer kicked up. So just stay positive, but as I say, as always, practice, 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 and practice your safety. And certainly at the end of the day, I think you will have a successful outcome. That being said, again, I want to give a special thanks to the Mariana Outdoorsman Association. You can join the MOA today at marianaoutdoors.com. If you do so, certainly you get the rest of this year for free, and you get all of 2025. So that is awesome, an exciting opportunity, and well worth being a member of this tremendous, tremendous organization that's committed to conservation and the great outdoors. Have some upcoming trout stalkings, not only this week, but every month thereafter. So please check us out on Facebook. You can always follow all my episodes and everything that we do on Anchor Radio, Spotify, YouTube. Again, the Mariana Outdoorsman Association at Facebook, marianaoutdoors.com. Special thanks to Wild Acres Farm Fishery and Regulated Hunting Grounds. If you want to book an upland bird hunt, deer hunt, turkey hunt, go to 10milesco.org or give us a call at 724-579-0924. And as always, please be safe. Enjoy the great outdoors. I wish all of you nothing but the best, whether you're deer hunting for a big rack or you're just trying to fill the freezer with meat. I'm Jason White. This has been a great outdoors. God bless and have a great week, everyone.